Receiving is the greatest skill that every asker needs to develop, the ability to receive. For whosoever asks shall receive, and whosoever knocks, the door shall be opened, and whosoever seeks shall find. In our individual wealth journeys, what lessons can we extract and apply from this ancient text? As students of life, we need to constantly develop for ourselves working understanding of two important wording: law and principles. In every area of life, there are laws. In every area of life, there are principles. There are principles for investing. There are laws for investing. There are principles for finances. There are laws for finances. There are principles for happiness. There are laws for happiness. There are principles for success. There are laws for success. So what is a principle? A principle is a bundle of requirements that all of them must be met at a single point in time in order for all of them to work on your behalf. A law, on the other hand, is a single requirement that if you meet it, that single requirement will go to work on your behalf. That is the difference between principles and law. So at whichever point in life you appear, whether in career, business, or even in your own private life or in vocation, you constantly need to ask yourself, at this phase in my career, at this phase in my life, am I merely employing a principle or am I merely employing a law? Because whenever we are employing principles, then the most important question that all of us need to assess for ourselves: have I met all the requirements that will allow that principle to kick in on my behalf? While on the other hand, when we are talking about law, it is just one requirement. So whether in career or in life, you need to ask yourself, have I arrived at principles? Because if you have arrived at principles, then you need to ask yourself, what other requirements operate in concert in order for that one principle to work? A typical example would be the principles of aerodynamics. The principles of aerodynamics are a bundle of requirements that when you have met them, regardless whether you're educated or not, those principles will go to work on your behalf. And those principles will ensure that you are constantly airborne. On the other hand, there are laws for aerodynamics. One typical law for aerodynamics: an individual needs to learn how to break from the law of gravity. When you break from the law of gravity, then you have connected to the laws of aerodynamics, the law of aerodynamics. That is very important. And in whichever area of life, we constantly need to ask yourself, am I merely employing principle? And if you are employing principles, then you need to understand what other requirements does this principle run into so that the principles will work cumulatively on your behalf. It's very important that you constantly assess for yourself. Laws work on their own behalf. Whether it is in career, if you find a law in your career, that law will work unilaterally. If you find principles in life, then those principles work cumulatively. Those principles work in concert. The text in hand today: for anyone who asks shall receive. So the first law is the law of asking equals the law of receiving. So there is a law that is for asking, whether you're asking in your career, whether you're asking in your craft, whether you're asking in your business, how you appear at the marketplace, whether you're asking in your own private life, whether you're asking in your own relationships. How do you ask? That whichever time you have met the requirement for that law, then that law will open you up, will usher you up to the space of receiving. Whenever we don't receive, chances are we did not ask. But if we asked The other important understanding is, do I need a skill of receiving? One of those things that I've really observed in my own private life is sometimes the level of asking that I've made do not correspond with the levels of receiving that I've availed myself. Whether it's in my career, there are things that I've asked in my career that more often than not, I have not availed myself to the points of receiving. Receiving is the greatest skill that every asker needs to develop. The ability to receive, whether you're receiving in your career, whether you're receiving in life, whether you're receiving in business, whether you're receiving in vocation, whether you're receiving in your own personal relationships. All of us need to understand, have I fully framed, have I built a capacity in me to receive? That is one of the most important skills that I cannot really help you how to receive on your own behalf, because sometimes reception is tied to our individuality. Sometimes reception is tied to our personality. So all of us, we need to ask ourselves, the levels of asking, do they correspond with my levels of receiving? If they don't match, then the asking, if at all you can assess that I have asked and I've asked in the right way, whatever right way means, then we need to ask ourselves, have I availed myself and do I have the capacity to receive? It is the capacity to receive that will close the circuit in your asking. My name is Ogwang. I'm the principal at Franchise and Licensing Institute, and I will see you in the next one. We'll talk about the law of knocking and open doors. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.